Hey everyone, just want to lay out a few things before we officially start with the video. Number one is that this whole playthrough is done on hard mode, which I did forget to mention. And number two is that I have played roughly the first 8 to 10 hours of Nocturne before, but I wanted to restart and do this kind of edited fun playthrough. So yeah, I do hope you enjoy. The game begins with us naming the main character, and talking to Jesus Lady here, who gives us a windy intro. Once we gain control of our character, we head towards a shady hospital, and Japan is weirdly quiet. A hippie in the park gives us a naughty magazine, we let our friend read it, and she joins the occult. Not Naoto here introduces himself, and we're going on a hunt for our teacher. We interrupt an angry man and his goat, and our teacher saves our ass from getting sacrificed. We're now told that the world is ending, but we gain a maiden, so all is good. Shortly, Tokyo starts freestyling, and we get this banger. We hear the voice of God, and baby Satan and my grandma torture me in my sleep. We awake with a spike sticking out of our neck, and the game truly begins. Hippie Man tells us to fight on his behalf, and we enter the most brutal tutorial section ever made. Come across a couple of will-o-wisps, which aren't too much of a threat, but the Predator here has other ideas. Once I miss, dodge, and miss again, if this isn't the perfect introduction to Nocturne, I don't know what is. Attempt 2 is more successful, and we begin our journey through the hospital to find a way out. On our way, we meet our wife, agree to take her to my place, and I manage to recruit Kodama. There's not much notable in the hospital run besides a few chests, until I'm ambushed by a group of Huapo, who wipe me out in an instant. I did not even know they could be encountered in this area. Going back through again, I recruit a Shikigami who is a very useful demon early on. It's not long before we come across Fornius, the first boss, who was an absolute joke. His weakness to thunder means Pixie and Shikigami can tear through him, and inflicting him with shock gives guaranteed physical strikes. Fornius gets fried for our dinner, and we move on. On my way out, we meet my grandma and the baby again. I yell at them for turning me into a supervillain, and we get our first glimpse of what really happened to Noctis after Final Fantasy 15. I make a pit stop in Yogi Park, which is going to be a very useful grinding spot for items, as well as being a local pickup block. On the way to Shibuya, however, I'm greeted with RGB birds who like to use Wing Buffet, and it doesn't take long for me to be wiped out. After walking all the way back, I finally make it to Shibuya. I wipe the crumbs of fried fish from my jeans as I meet Fornius' lover, and get Jack Frost to agree to be my dealer. While I'm here, I get lucky enough that Pretzel recruits himself, and he's actually pretty useful, having access to buffing evasion and Agi coverage. It's also by now that we get access to fusing, but there's not too much I can really grab yet. I finally managed to recruit a Huapo after about 5 attempts. Demon recruitment in this game is very random and has no real structure like Persona 5 for example. Huapo is very important as she's the earliest demon that can buff my defense when I raise it to level 9. I decide it's time to let loose from killing demons when I run into my friend at the club who stood alone with a drink in the corner, realizing that joining the occult had consequences. Chiaki's determined that there's other survivors and we leave her be to dance with the souls or whatever it is she's doing. On the way out, I take a gamble and let Pixie transform a skill, with Zio becoming Zio, the AoE version. This level up also triggers Pixie's evolution into High Pixie, which is going to be a huge help in the next dungeon. I meet Hijiri again in the save room, and he says the cylinders are all connected, allowing travel between them using what is known as the Amala Network. How we figured this out, I will never know. We want to find Hikawa, so we decided, fuck it, and jump into the network. I do a very brief grind in Yogi Park just for some items beforehand, because I know exactly what is coming up. The Amala Network is notorious for being a cock in the ass, and is a big difficulty spike. Not only that, this whole dungeon is a labyrinth of false corridors, disappearing stairs and lots of the same few enemies. What makes these fights difficult isn't so much the demons themselves, but the fact that they can just appear in groups of as big as 7. If they get the jump on you, it's likely a game over. I make it to the first safe room without too much trouble, but after this things get more complicated. It's worth noting that you cannot recruit any of the demons here unless they offer to join you, and that's pretty rare. It just so happened that in my first encounter with this blue fellow, he did just that. I make steady progress, but my limited MP and healing items are worrying, and the demons in this place are fairly tanky. Along the way, I take another gamble, and who opposed Patra turns into Blimpa. After some more teleporting through corridors, I arrive at the final save and heal point, and challenge the boss, the Spectre. This one is actually interesting, there's more to cover than with Fornius. He begins the battle by splitting himself up, and within a few turns, he'll refuse back together. Depending on how many he killed, that determines his strength. Shikigami does his job buffing my attack, and I use Berserk to AoE and physical attacks to pick off a few of them. I managed to get 2 down before he reforms, which is the ideal number. Since I have no AoE heal, things come pretty close near the end due to his physical and AoE combo, but I managed to scrape by. Defeating the Spectre also allows Hijiri to somehow magic the door open, which means we can sprint the hell out of the Amala Network and never look back. Before coming out, we're delighted to watch Satan and my grandma perform on stage. They give me a menorah, which I'm sure will be handy. Now, we've arrived in Ginza, another main city. I take some time to look around, take a peek at the fusion options, and we now have access to gem trading, which we'll be using soon enough. Loki laughs at us for being a child, so I spit in his drink and leave. I try my best to recruit Jack Frost, but he isn't having any of it. It's at this point where I'm kicking myself in the nuts for having my mic muted here, as I wasn't able to capture my reaction to what's about to happen. Jack Frost still refuses to be my hoe, so I say fuck him and fuse his ass instead, transferring all Shikigami's buff and debuff skills to him. I make an attempt to leave Ginza and head to the Harumi warehouse, but it doesn't go so well. It's made clear very fast that I need to spend a little bit more time getting stronger. Guess I'll go hit the gym, or maybe I'll just go back to Yogi Park and slaughter a few more 1,000 pixies. What really helps me out here is after spending a bit of time looking at fusion, I managed to fuse a Nozuchi, which is going to be the king for this next section. Nozuchi drains force damage and has good physical power. I finally start making progress through the Great Underpass, and I come across these creepy mannequin dudes. I've seen enough horror movies, so I bucket out of there before they eat me alive. One of them is friendly enough and allows me to buy a few Magatama. I'm completely shameless here, so I turn the difficulty down to normal temporarily just to buy these, as it reduces the price pretty heavily, and it just saves me an hour of grinding pixies to sell items. The Hifumi Magatama is especially important soon for the force protection. On my way out, I hit a roadblock, as one of the demi-fiend-eating mannequins won't let me through the gate. However, lucky for me, there's a mannequin who won't eat me, and instead wants me to go collect things for him. He wants a cash drop-off, so I agree and head back to Ginza for a shady deal. It turns out the whole thing was a setup, and we're actually stealing cash from Loki, who I pissed off earlier. I grab the briefcase, but I'm ambushed on my way out. This boss can either be the easiest in the entire game, or potentially pretty tough. He's weak to ailments, so if you've managed to recruit a demon with Balimpa, this fight is a breeze as he will never be able to attack you. I use my Huapo, who changed a skill into Balimpa, and I smack his shit up for trying to cross me. I head back to the Underpass, the shady business deal is complete, and I'm free to pass through the gate. Now, if you know anything about Nocturne, you know exactly what's coming up. The most notorious and challenging boss the game has to offer early on. A noob destroyer, a crusher of dreams, nightmare fuel for RPG veterans. So what do? I'll run you by how I prepared. I needed to get some levels on me, and I also needed to prep some items. The Kaja rocks can be traded with the gem merchant, so I needed coral and garnet. Coral can be farmed from his Zora in the Underpass, and I got my hands on about 6 in 20 minutes. Garnet, however, is from Nozuchi just past the gate we opened. I wasted so much time here. I managed to get 2 garnet in probably over 2 hours. I ended up getting a few levels here in the process, and a blob recruited himself while I was at it. This meant I could fuse the absolute beast Momonofu for the upcoming fight. While leveling, I made sure to grab Medea on Demi-Fiend to heal, and just before I attempt boss, Nozuchi leveled up and learned Rekukaja. I was slightly over-leveled because of my failed attempts at grinding Garnet, and I would usually bring Huapo to buff my defense, but this would do nicely instead. I bring Sudama for his force resistance and equip the Hifumi Mega Tower. It's now or nothing. This was the true test. I beat the absolute shit out of this man. I'm not gonna speak, I'm just gonna let you witness this.
Yeah, but honestly, the way he talked, it reminded so much more of Shido. Like,
yeah.
Give it time.
Alright, now I'm a +4. So even if he buffs himself, we'll be even.
Yeah.
She doesn't seem to be doing.
He switches phases. There are very few times that he does it mid-phase at random.
Impressive. But the moment of truth is beyond your grasp. I alone can discern it.
Okay.
Nofu dodged it. Instead, Sudama got it.
Oh, the current focus attack.
And he's already in low health.
Oh, Mato, you ain't shit. You ain't shit, boy. You ain't shit. You ain't shit. I got very lucky that he didn't try and recast Red Capote. With fully buffed agility and defense, this fight was a joke. GG Matador, I leave you in the dust, claim my prize, and head onwards.
There is no hurry, but could you bring your menorah to us? I will allow you access to the Labyrinth of Amala from the terminal. I will explain the details upon your arrival. Until then, please ensure that the menorah remains in your safekeeping.
Hey, if you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to see future parts. I had an absolute blast making this, and I cannot wait to make more. Thank you so much for watching.